Hi everybody, in this video we're going to learn how to convert from standard form to vertex form by completing the square. Now listen, completing the square is super important to math 3, right? Because you need it to in order to solve equations for circles when you get to math 3. So that's why we're going to be doing completing the square here. Well, first we're going to visit the first step, right, to completing the square. And the first step for completing the square when you're dealing with a quadratic is to go ahead and identify what your B term is. So if your leading coefficient is 1, as it is in this example, we're going to go ahead and identify what our B term is. And so after that, we're going to take our B term, we're going to divide it by 2, and then we're going to square that number. That is what we're going to do to help us learn in the process of completing the square. So this is our very first step, okay? So this is step 1. We're going to practice step 1 first. All right, so here, our B is 14, okay? This is our B. And our B is always the linear term. So let me go ahead and write that down. B is the linear term. It is going to be with the X value. All right. So B always has X next to it. That's how we know which one is B. So we're going to take B, which is 14. We're going to divide it by 2, and then we're going to square it. So 14 divided by 2 is 7 using order of operations. 7 squared is 49. So to complete this square, C is going to be 49. Now, let me go even a step further to make sure you understand what we're actually doing. When you complete the square, you are creating what we call a perfect square trinomial. Perfect square trinomials can be written in the form of ax squared plus or minus, because it could be a plus 2ab or it could be a minus 2ab plus b squared. And that factors into a plus or minus b quantity squared. So again, when I use that plus or minus, I'm just saying that it's either, let me show you what I'm saying. I'm saying that it's either a plus b times a plus b, which is the same as a plus b squared, or a minus b times a minus b, which can also be written as a minus b squared. So in this case, if C is 49, that means our expression can be written as p squared minus 14p plus 49. That means that I can rewrite it like this, in this way. So let's talk about how to rewrite this in a different way, right? We just found out that 14 divided by 2 is 7. That is the number that actually goes in the parentheses. So I'm going to take this number and I'm going to put it over here in this parenthesis. So it's actually p minus 7 times p minus 7. That gives us p squared minus 14p plus 49. So p minus 7 times p minus 7 can also be written as p minus 7 squared. And therefore, we have created a perfect square trinomial. You can always check your math by doing the box method on this, right? So you can check with the box method or with FOIL to make sure that you have factored that correctly, okay? So let's move on to the next problem. Now, again, we're going to identify B. In this case, B is -5, okay? So here's the deal. It's not a nice number. When I divide by 2, it is going to give me a fraction. So can I still do the same thing? Yeah, you can, okay? So 5 over 2 squared is equal to 5 over 2 times 5 over 2, which is 25 over 4. So that means C is going to be 25 over 4. So I can rewrite this expression as a squared minus 5a plus 25 over 4. We can factor this into a, and remember what you found here inside that parenthesis. In this case, it didn't simplify, so you just simply write it as is 5 over 2. So up here is simplified, so we wrote the 7. But down here it didn't simplify, so we just write 5 over 2 squared. Okay, remember that's the same thing as saying a minus 5 over 2 times a minus 5 over 2. All right, that's how we got our perfect square trinomial. Now let's go ahead and do the last example. So we did a positive number, we did a negative number. What happens when you have a number, a coefficient? What do you do then? So this is what you do. You go the first step. Okay, we got to adjust your first step. The first step is to go ahead and make your leading coefficient a 1. So we are going to, we're going to have to divide by 2. So we have 2x squared minus 9x, and we're going to divide both of those terms by 2 to let the leading coefficient be a 1, right? So this cancels out, and I get a 1 from my leading coefficient. So that gives me x squared minus 9 over 2x. And now I'm still going to do the same thing, right? What's my b? My b is the number with the linear term. So b here is 9 over 2. So we're going to do 9 over 2, right? That's our b divided by 2. And then we're going to square it. Now, if you don't want to do that math, guess who will? Dun 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 dun! Desmos will! So let's type it in here. So we got 9 divided by 2, right? And then this right here was actually divided by 2. So let's go ahead and put that in parentheses. This right here was actually divided by 2 because that's our b. Divide that by 2. And so we get 2.25, okay? Now we want to square that number. So let's come down here and square 2.25. And we get 5.0625. So what is that as a fraction? Okay, let's talk about that. All right. So 2.25 is actually 9 over 4, right? And then that number squared would be, let's go ahead and work it out mathematically, okay? So how did I get 9 over 4? Well, first of all, 9 over 2 divided by 2 is the same thing as writing it like so. 9 over 2 divided by 2. Remember, you keep the first, you change the operation to multiplication, and then you find the reciprocal of the second fraction, and then you multiply it straight across. So 9 times 1 is 9, 2 times 2 is 4, which gives me 9 over 4. Okay? And now I want to square that. So 9 over 4 squared is the same thing as saying 9 over 4 times 9 over 4. All right? And once again, I'm going to multiply straight across. So 9 times 9 is 81, and 4 times 4 is 16. So our fraction is 81 over 16. That is what is equivalent to 5.0625. So we want it as a fraction. So let's go ahead and deal with it there. And now you can see the math that gets us to it. So here we see our 9 over 2 over 2, 9 divided by 2 divided by 2 squared is actually 81 divided by 16. So to complete this square, we would say x squared minus 9 over 2x plus 81 over 16, right? And if we were to write that as a factor, right, the number that would go inside the parenthesis would be what this turned out to be. So when we work that problem out, remember it came out to be 9/4. So 9/4 would go here, and this would be squared. So you're probably wondering, where would the number 2 go? Well, the number 2 would come right back out here in front. And that's how you complete the square. So the answer here is 81/16. Okay. Sometimes they'll want you to multiply by whatever that front number is. And if that's the case, then you would simply do 81/16 times 2, which will give you 81/8. Look out for the next video.